John McMullen. Let's bring him into the conversation at JF McMullen on Twitter, and he'll be in Atlanta for the Super Bowl tomorrow. John, he said the other day he wants to try. They asked him, any chance this is your last game? He said zero. No chance at all. And he said he's made it. He wants to play until he's 45 years old, which means that's 5 more seasons for Brady.
Yeah, he says he's having fun, and we'll see how he's able to hold up. But there's been no evidence of a sharp decline. I think the obvious comparison is Peyton Manning. And when it does happen, it'll happen very, very quickly. Because you remember, Peyton was the MVP of the league, throwing 50 touchdowns. And
that's a sound we haven't heard in a long, long time. When's the last time you heard that sound?
I haven't heard that in years, but he made a statement. You know, he hung up and he said that's enough.
Yeah, something's going on with these. The whole thing with the phones last week, we had a lot of problems with the phones, and we've kind of got them refixed, but people just act like the phones. You know that phones in today's day and age are crap,
horrible.
Like it's not the old POTS line that was like into the wall and just nice.
People don't use them anymore.
Digital phone lines that are now present are garbage. So we have all sorts of screwy stuff going on with these phones recently, and we apologize. I mean, it's been awful.
Yeah,
We've been trying to do talk shows with no phone lines.
Yeah,
and then
it's unfortunate. We're just as disappointed as anyone.
Digital crappy phone lines. That's what they are. They're not very secure, and they're not very stable is the problem.
You got to think the Patriots could potentially be involved in the phone issue.
Yeah, the Patriots, it's phone gate.
It's phone gate. That's all it is.
Yeah. So I heard Brady the other day. He said he wants to play till he's 45.
They asked him in that interview, I think we're alluding to the same interview, he said, I'm 41 this year. This year was the toughest year ever, but I'm going to take a lot of lessons and learn from it and get better in the offseason. He's fully prepared and equipped to play into his 40s and adjust.
Now, John, you were saying he's still enjoying it and having fun. I guess you did. You're 9 Super Bowls. What's not fun about that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I heard you guys talk. I was talking that entire time. I have no idea what you heard and what you didn't hear. But, he's already got the most Super Bowl titles for a starting quarterback. He would tie the most Super Bowl losses if they lose this game. So that kind of tells you the absurd number of 9 and the success of the Patriots. So it's unheard of. We're probably never going to see it again. He continues to have fun. And ultimately that 45 number, I think, look, it happens quickly, and that's what I brought up. It's Peyton Manning, who was throwing 50 touchdowns and winning the MVP award, and quickly after that, less than 2 years later, he was physically shot. So Father Time is the only opponent we all lose to. Ultimately, Tom will lose to as well. He's just been able to stave him off a little bit longer than most.
One thing is, though, with the difference between Manning and Brady is towards the end, Manning was, he had the neck surgery. I mean, he was breaking down physically. Brady has only had the knee injury.
Yeah, but you're right, and that is a significant injury. And Peyton ultimately had 3 surgeries on that neck. So there is a difference, but more so just that how high at a level that he was playing late in his career and how quickly it descended, because he had come back and fully come back from those neck surgeries. So, yeah, I mean, Tom doesn't have a similar circumstance other than the knee injury, but 41 years old, hey, every day that goes by, and people are already talking about it, and at some point people will even say now he's getting ready to play in another Super Bowl, and there's still people that say he's not the same physically, doesn't look the same, doesn't have the same sharpness. But he sure has the same success.
Ask who was that from the Chargers, Bosa? Do you see that video when he was like, it's amazing how fast the ball comes out of his hand?
Well, and that's part of it. I mean, he doesn't take hits, and he's very smart, and he understands the situation. We always talk about quarterbacks who get rid of the ball quickly versus quarterbacks that try to extend plays, and Carson Wentz being one of them. And look, the guys who can extend plays and have the ability to do that, they make some of the most exciting plays you will ever see, the most exciting plays you'll ever remember, but they're also susceptible to getting hurt. And they're not only susceptible to getting hurt, they're also going to turn the ball over more because they're trying to wait for that last split second where a receiver comes open, and that leaves you open for strip sacks and things like that. So it's an interesting dichotomy of what you want in a quarterback. But at this stage, I don't think there's any question that what Tom does is very, very smart for him, and that's get rid of the football quickly.
John, I'm going to sound like I'm trying to take something away from Tom Brady here, and I'm not at all. But it's just interesting to me that all the focus goes to Tom Brady, rightfully so, of course. But to me, it's almost more about Bill Belichick and how he's able to prepare his team for the entire season, marathon, not a sprint, and how to just out-prepare every coach in the most meaningful game year after year. I mean, a couple months ago, I was listening to national talk shows, national TV shows. You know, the Patriots, Brady finally looks old, their defense, this and that, the weapons, this and that, and here they are again.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, I don't think there's any credible argument against Bill Belichick being the greatest coach of all time at this point. I don't care what name you want to bring up, including Lombardi. He's the best because he's done it 2 decades in the era of free agency where there's constant change and there's constant turnover. The Patriots' first title started with the Rams when the Rams were in St. Louis all those years ago. And think about the difference in that team versus the one that'll be taking on the Los Angeles Rams. In a lot of ways, those two are married. And I don't think Bill has the success he has without Tom Brady, but I also think it's vice versa. And I do agree with you that I don't know who's going to win this game. We'll talk a lot about that in the week coming up, but I know who's more talented, and that's the Los Angeles Rams. And the second thing I know is, hey, Sean McVay, you can love him. You can try to hire his doppelganger. And I guarantee one other thing for the Super Bowl. The coach who's going to out-scheme the other coach is the old guy, not the young guy. And that's just the way it is. And that's nothing against Sean McVay. That's just Bill Belichick is better than everybody else, and everybody knows it. And
he wasn't better than Peterson last year, though, right?
No, I think he was, and I love Doug. No, there's no way because the Eagles were a more talented team. We talk about these Patriots, and Ryan mentioned. Everybody says they've taken a step back from a talent perspective. They have. Of the Final Four, this is the second straight year you can look at it and say clearly this team was the least talented of the bunch. That Atlanta team they came back on was much more explosive than they were, and the Eagles had more talent. So, I think Doug did better than most, but the fact that the Patriots were in that game and the fact that if it wasn't for Brandon Graham, who knows what happened? I mean, that's what Bill does. He puts this team in a position to win. So I'm not going to say he was out-coached. I don't think he's ever out-coached, to be honest.
What about Goff? First pick of the draft. Does this Super Bowl already validate him as that number 1 overall pick?
Yeah, I think so. I think at least from a casual fan perspective, I mean, that's what everybody rates quarterbacks on is Super Bowls. I've said it a lot. I still need to see more, and I still need to see more from Sean McVay. Unless this, you guys just talked about, is this going to be a long run for this team? I don't know, because I think there's got to be more growing, and I talked about it a lot. I think ultimately Sean McVay is going to have to give Jared Goff more of a leash for having long-term success, and we'll see if that happens. A lot of people joke that he's sort of like an exoskeleton for Sean McVay. I don't think that's completely fair. They have done some different things this year. They've gone with more tempo, but it's an interesting dichotomy, just like with the coaches at the quarterback position, because you got a guy who can do everything at the line of scrimmage against a guy who can't. And I'd rather have the guy who can do everything at the line of scrimmage. A lot of young coaches don't agree with that. So it's sort of this whole Super Bowl is sort of a validation of Sean McVay and the way he does things, and a lot of young coaches do things versus the old school way of doing things in a different fashion, especially on offense, especially when you have a quarterback like Tom Brady. Are we ever going to have another Tom Brady? Well, if you don't allow these quarterbacks to have autonomy at the line of scrimmage, the answer to that is going to be no.
John, I want to read off one of our listeners' text messages that were submitted to the text board during our conversation, because this is another narrative that I laugh at. I genuinely want your opinion on it. Someone needs to talk about the Patriots' Super Bowl wins. They should not have beat the Seahawks. They should not have beat the Falcons. If T.O. was 100%, the Eagles should have won that game. They should only have 2, and they were by last-second field goals. This dynasty is impressive, but it's also very strange.
I don't know. I mean, this is their 9th Super Bowl.
I know.
They should have beaten the Giants twice.
Right.
It's interesting. We just thought they probably shouldn't have beat Atlanta. There's no question if Atlanta was able to just handle the clock a little bit better. I mean, you can use if and buts. If they're candy and nuts, we can have a great party. The reality is they're there every year. And it's pretty astonishing. If Brandon Graham doesn't strip sack, who knows what happens last year. I mean, the best team they ever had didn't win. I mean, that was the 16-0 team with Randy Moss scoring 30 touchdowns or whatever, and they get a beat on a particular game day against a team that was inferior. This sport, to me, the more impressive part is not the 5 rings. It's not the 9 Super Bowls. And I always say this, and Mike knows it, it's consistency. And if you're consistent, that to me speaks to greatness more than spikes, more than sort of EKG spikes like you're a heart attack victim. You got 1 year up, 1 year down, 1 year up, 1 year down. Not the Patriots. And from going through it with the Eagles, the grind that puts on a team to go deep into the playoffs and then have to go do it again, it's difficult to do in back-to-back years. We just lived it. They do it back-to-back, throw 17 of them in a row. They're always there. It is amazing.
It really is. And a lot of to their credit, and, part of this is they win the division so often they don't have to play the wild card game.
Yeah, that's huge.
So they're always kind of getting that first round bye, and then they only have to win one more game to get to the AFC Championship game, and then you're in a coin flip on making it to the Super Bowl. So winning that division for them has been so imperative. And I don't know, John, if there's a team in that AFC East that's still going to be ready to, compete with them.
It certainly doesn't look like it, not in the short term. You can turn things around quickly in this league, as we all know. And Miami's going to hire Brian Flores away from the Patriots, so who knows what happens there. The Jets have made changes again. Sean McDermott is still feeling his way in Buffalo. So it's going to be certainly, if Tom continues to play and play at the level he's played at, nobody's got a shot certainly next year in that division. But, people always talk about it, and I've said it myself. I think it helps to play in a bad division simply because, obviously, you're going to have a very good record. You're going to be 6-0 or 5-1 before you get outside the division. But if you look at the Patriots through this entire process, their winning percentage inside the division versus outside the division, very similar. Obviously, it's tremendous in both circumstances, but it's better than you think outside the division, which indicates they just beat everybody.
John, real quick, the NFL, this story about the officials who had all lived in the Southern California area. And, I guess the NFL is kind of going towards making an announcement about the error in that game. I guess we're getting closer to that. But what about the guys living in that Southern California area? That's been brought up a lot over the weekend.
Yeah, people are obsessed with this officiating thing. I just think, for years in the NBA, for instance, there were so many referees from Delaware County. It was just absurd. That's where they all came from in this area. Didn't help the Sixers that much, believe me. Yeah, I don't. That kind of stuff doesn't matter. As far as the NFL, Roger Goodell's press conference is on Wednesday, so he's going to have to say something. He's going to say what they've already said behind the scenes, in that it was an obvious mistake, and so that announcement, as people phrase it, that's just his sort of state of the union address that he always does at the Super Bowl. I think the league should have acknowledged the error publicly, but hey, they're bad at public relations. I've been saying that for 20 years.
Well, they'll be down there, John McMullen, tomorrow, and Scott Grayson will be covering Super Bowl 53 for 97.3 ESPN.com, and we will have all the news and updates throughout the week as the craziness from Atlanta kicks off all week long on 97.3 ESPN. And when is that? When's the media day? Wednesday, you say? Or that's when Goodell?
That's when Roger Goodell's press conference. Actually, Super Bowl opening night is I don't even know. It might have happened. I don't know. It's either Monday nights. Yeah, it's before we even get there. So, but that nonsense is when everybody gaggles together and the fans are allowed.
We want to hear what's happening Wednesday with all the big news. You'll be there, and we'll have plenty on that, and we will get it all kicked off right here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We got a big crew going down there this year covering Super Bowl 53. John McMullen, as always, on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Thanks, pal.
Hey, thanks, guys.